Let's call the Regional Transportation Commission meeting to order for May 20th at 9 a.m. with roll call. Madam Clerk.
Christina Swallow.
Here.
Oscar Delgado.
Here.
Ed Lawson.
Here.
Bill Thomas.
Here.
Von Hartung.
Picking up the end here.
Adam Spear.
Here.
Let the record show that Neoma Jardin and Bob Lucy are not in attendance. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Hartung, will you lead us?
I'd be honored to, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. Please join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And as we move on to 1.3, a proclamation, Mr. Thomas, will you read the proclamation for us?
Glad to, Mr. Chairman. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Washoe County, Nevada. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Washoe County, Nevada to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public work programs in respective communities, and whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association and Canadian Public Works Association, be it now resolved, and I'm saying this on...
Come on.
I, on behalf of Neoma Jardin, Chair of the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, do hereby designate the week May 15th through 21st, 2020 as National Public Works Week. I urge all residents to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association, the RTC of Washoe County, and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public work professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protect our national health, safety, and quality of life.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say something real quickly? Just to let you all in on the joke, it says resolved I, Neoma Jardin, and I was waiting for Mr. Thomas to read I, Neoma Jardin. So
yeah.
that was the,
You almost got me.
the inside.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
let's move on to item 2, public comment. I have one public comment card. Anyone in the public wishing to make a comment, please fill out a card and give it to the clerk. Ryan McKinney, you're up.
How's that? Is that good? Okay. I just want to first say to the board and to Mr. Thomas's staff, as we're coming out of the end times of the COVID, is that, except for the bus strike, that you guys have done a good job to keep transit at a somewhat reasonable level, even for the bus and the access as a consumer, to try and keep it at a level where you don't cut the service to the bone. You've done your very best to keep it at a very reasonable, fair level, even though ridership was very low, and I know it cut the budget of the ride down to the point because of not enough people riding due to the COVID. And also another thing, I was just going to come from I had some concerns, but before the meeting, Miss Susie Trinidad talked to me about the concerns, and that's another thing is that your guys' staff, they're very communicative, very open suggestions to problems, concerns that we, the public, have. And also that, and on the access side, that Mr. Gregg and Mr. Ben, the schedulers, are starting to use their brain and to figure Well, we have these things to make it more easier for people to ride, that can communicate like Ida, using the Lyft, the Uber, the taxi, to make it more easy to get around, and also free up more drivers for people that cannot communicate like I can, that need to use the access. They can use the access. It's like they're starting to, get a very, think out of the box and use their brains. And also patrons usually, because, we communicate concerns. For example, like Susie came in, I had a concern about the app, said, oh no, Ryan, here's what we're doing to fix it. We're fixing the app and we're making it more visual friendly, but also fixing the Access app because we realize that there's bugs in it. It's not as reliable as it has been. So stuff like that. And that's the staff that, to keep the Access and the ride into the future is very well needed.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. And I'm looking for item 3, approval of the agenda. And please let the record show that Commissioner Lucy showed up at just a couple minutes after 9. Yes, sir.
Second.
Got a motion, I got a second. Any further discussion? I'm in Sparks mode. Let's see.
Don't please vote.
I know, I was going to say please vote, but we don't know. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I got to get the Sparks mode out of my head. Approval of the consent items. Anyone wishing to pull a consent item? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're moving on to public hearing items. We're conducting a public hearing for the FY 2023 RTC final budget approval of the FY 2023 RTC final budget. Staff presentation, we're ready. Here we go.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Stephanie Haddock, Director of Finance, one last time, presenting the fiscal year 2023 budget. So we'll start with a budget overview of the process. We started the process in February with our director's retreat. From there, we developed our tentative budget and we submitted that to the Department of Taxation on April 15th. Then we also presented a budget, the tentative budget, to our advisory committees on May 4th and 5th. Today's public hearing is for the final budget and approval of that budget. And then once it's approved, we will submit it to the Department of Taxation. We plan to do that on May 27th, but legally we have to just do it by June 1st. So we'll start with our revenues. Overall fiscal year 2023 revenues are budgeted at $202 million. RTC's largest revenue source is our fuel tax at $100 million. That's a 5% increase over fiscal year 2022 estimates. It's based on flat gallons and a small increase in fuel tax indexing. Our second largest revenue source is our sales tax at $44 million. That's a 4% increase over our fiscal year 2022 estimates. Our next largest revenue source is federal funding at $38 million. All of that will be for capital expenditures. There is no stimulus money in that number. RTC has fully expended all the stimulus funds we have received. We have $7 million in impact fee revenue. Passenger fares budgeted at $4 million. Investment income at $1 million. Our pass-through money from Ndot at $6 million. And miscellaneous revenue, which also includes our project reimbursements, at $4 million. Total expenditures for fiscal year 2023 will be $250 million, the largest portion of that going towards road projects, a total combined portion of $146 million, 73 in capacity projects, and 73 in pavement preservation and multimodal projects. We have $38 million budgeted for our ride operating expense. That is a flat increase over our fiscal year 2022 budget. $18 million for ride capital, $14 million in paratransit operating. That's a 14% increase over our fiscal year 2022 budget, and $7 million for paratransit capital. and $23 million for our debt service, and $4 million for Metropolitan planning operating expenditures. RTC is comprised of three major programs. First of and largest is our street and highway program. For fiscal year 2023, we're starting the year with a beginning fund balance of $172 million. We will have $126.8 million in budgeted revenues. As I mentioned, $100 million in fuel tax. It will also include $7.4 million in our sales tax, which represents 50% of the 1/8 sales tax that is flexible between roads and transit. We have $3 million in pass-through gas tax from Ndot that is for the diverging diamond interchange for Lemon Drive. They're helping fund that. $7.6 million in federal funding. Most of that is our grant for the Arlington Bridges Replacement Project. And as I mentioned, $7 million in regional road impact fees. We have a total of $176.9 million in project expenditures budgeted. We'll have $73 million in capacity and congestion projects. That includes RTC's portion for the Spaghetti Bowl Express project, Lemon Drive, Sky Vista, the Sparks Boulevard Phase 1, Pyramid projects, both the intersection improvements and the widening, and traffic engineering intersection improvements. Could they make that any tougher for me? We have $30 million in multimodal projects. That includes the continuation of construction on our Audi Wells project, Mill Street, the pedestrian and multimodal improvements that we're making there. That's the phase 1 of that project, and West 4th Street. We have $35 million budgeted for regional road annual pavement preservation and road rehab. That includes a $15 million carry forward for projects for fiscal year 2022. A lot of our construction season projects carry over from year to year because our fiscal year ends in June, so construction goes on usually April through October. And we have $23 million in debt service. That will leave us with an ending fund balance of $105 million. However, we do need to carry that forward into fiscal year 2024 budget for already planned road projects that are in design and construction. And I just want to point out that we have $189 million in major projects planned for fiscal year 24 and 25. That includes the second part of Mill Street, which is estimated to be a $60 million project, Lemon Drive Segment 2, $40 million, and Sparks Boulevard Phase 2, which is estimated to be between $60 and $80 million. So all of that $105 million is planned for. Public transportation program is our next largest program. For fiscal year 23 budget, we'll start the year with a fund balance of $54 million. We have $73.8 million in projected revenues, which includes $37 million in sales tax. As I mentioned, that's a 4% increase over our current year estimates. We have $29 million in federal funding. Passenger fares is budgeted at $4 million. That's actually an 18% increase over our fiscal year 2022 budget. However, it is a 41% increase over our current year estimates. So we are planning for a slow return from our pandemic levels of service and revenues. State funding at $2.9 million. That's pass-through money that we use for our employer trip reduction program or van pooling. And we also receive revenue from Medicaid for our rides given on access. We have $77.5 million in expenditures budgeted. Ride operating, I mentioned at $38 million. Again, that's no increase over our fiscal year 2022 budget. $18 million in ride capital. We're going to spend $8.4 million to replace 12 ride buses, and we have about $5.5 million in various facility improvements. Access and Flex Ride operating budget is at $14 million. Again, a 14% increase over our fiscal year 2022. We have $7 million in access capital costs. That's $4.5 million to replace 30 access vans and $500,000 to do some improvements to the Sutro facility. We'll have an ending balance of fund balance of $50 million. We are setting aside $13.5 million for future capital projects in our grant match reserve and an additional $30 million for the replacement of our Villanova facility. Our last program is our Metropolitan Planning Organization program. We have $1.6 million budgeted in fiscal year 23, and planning revenue. It will be spent on about $1.3 million in proposed planning studies, the McCarran Loop Study, Active Transportation Plan, Regional Travel Demand Model, Verde Transportation Study, and a Transit-Oriented Development Study. So overall, we have a balanced budget for fiscal year 2023. It's definitely a budget planning for a more diminished economic growth, marginal increases in our revenues, again, flat growth in our gasoline gallons, and anticipated decreases in taxable sales and personal spending for the next fiscal year. Our RTC is a lean organization. We are only 67 employees, and we're happy to say that we create jobs. 95% of all the revenue that we get in is spent on contracts with the private sector. And that is it. I want to thank everybody that helped put this budget together. I don't do this by myself. So thank you to all the staff that helped get me here today. So I'm ready for any questions if you have them.
Any questions from the commission? Mr. Lucy.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Haddock, I want to thank you for your first of all, for all your many years of service. It has been a pleasure to serve with you for the last 7 years on this board, and you have been a tremendous asset. And I think managing a budget of this size is difficult. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that everybody says always that, RTC has all this money and we're this giant, repository for all these fuel tax dollars, and all we do is, sit on money. And I said, unfortunately, it's very different than as an RTC budget than any other agency that you would see within the region, because it isn't. We are not as much of a service industry or a service agency as we are a capital-based agency. I'm sorry, and because this is a capital-based budget. That's what people don't understand. Like you said, 64 employees that we have here currently, or 67 total employees here that we have at RTC for a $436 million budget. When you talk about compared to Washoe County's budget, $1 billion that has 2,500 employees, that you can see there's a definite difference between a service-based and a capital-based budget. And so I want to thank you for managing all those continued efforts. I mean, what we do at RTC to make sure that we continue to improve roads, our bus structure, our paratransit, everything that goes into these budgets is very much based around those capital infrastructure. And you and your team have done a phenomenal job year after year managing contracts and managing multiple different projects that we do and it's not just departments, it's a number of different issues from planning to the very end of actual delivery. So I want to thank you and your staff. I think you've done a wonderful job, and I'm very happy and pleased with where we're moving forward with this budget. So thank you with that, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
Again, I don't do it alone. I should say it takes a village. And I am very proud of my career with RTC. It's been, I don't want to get teary. I'm going to get a little teary. A privilege and an honor, really. Yes. So, thank you. Sorry.
Any other questions? We really get her crying?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so right now I'm going to open it up to the public for any comments on the budget. Anybody wishing to comment at this time? Mr. McKinney? Oh, hey, Mr.
Ryan.
McKinney? Ms. McKinney, you can't ask questions, you can only make comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you afterwards.
I just see a couple of things. Is that one with the buying of the new buses, the corridor buses, to prevent any legal action, it'd probably be best to put like a speaker on the front because of the fact you're getting, I know you're getting a waiver because they're required and they fall under that. Just to put like a speaker on one of those front out wheel wells. Person like me that's the visual impaired community, so that we know we can hear the bus in the silent mode. And also, I figure you guys, when you guys buy the new buses for the access, they're gonna be somewhat ADA compliant, right? Or they're going through a process like that? Okay. And then I like to thank Ms. Howard, because she did, from what I heard, it sounded like she did a very good, fair, and comprehensive job on the budget. And also, and this is one reason why not to get rid of the field index, because as she pointed out, the field index is one of the biggest providers of the budget. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? See none, I'll bring it back to the board. And we're looking for a motion.
Chairman, I would move to approve the fiscal year 2023 final budget as presented today.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 5.2. This is public hearing regarding approval of amendment number 2 to the FFY 21 through 25 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, RTIP. Adopt the resolution approving amendment number 2 and for 2021 through 25 of the Regional Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Dan Denges, Director of Planning for the record. The item before you is an amendment to our Regional Transportation Improvement Program, which is essentially our 5-year program of projects. This is a federally required document for the MPO. As amendments go, this one's kind of a big one. We've got a few projects that have been building up that we wanted to kind of address all in one action here. So just a quick overview, a couple of the projects that we are adding will either include anticipated grant funding for some discretionary event grants we put in, or grant funding we've already received, so we need to update those funding sources. And those are the top two there, the Washoe Fuel Cell, electric bus and infrastructure development, as well as the Arlington Avenue Bridges replacement. We also have a number of projects that were awarded through RTC Washoe's Transportation Alternatives Program. This is a funding program specifically for more pedestrian, non-motorized, multimodal type improvements. So a number of awards went to the City of Reno, City of Sparks, also to the Washoe County School District to help support their Safe Routes to School program. So any federal funds that we're bringing in that are new projects, we need to show those in the tip. And we also have some other new projects from the capital side, looking at North Virginia Street Multimodal Design Project, intersection improvements at Pyramid Highway and Sparks Boulevard, as well as a Sierra Street Bridge replacement in Reno. And those are all in the design phase. And then lastly, we just had some kind of administrative things to take care of. As projects go out the bid, sometimes schedule shifts, so we just kind of updated fiscal years for when we're expecting project delivery and moving around funding sources, that sort of thing. And this does include some kind of administrative changes to some projects that NDOT had requested that are within our urban area. So following our public participation plan, we held a public comment period. That period was a 21-day period from April 29th to May 19th, so it closed yesterday, which will result in our public hearing today. We advertised in all the local media outlets, both print outlets like the RGJ and some other like Spanish-speaking newspapers, Spanish language newspapers. We presented this to our advisory committees. And one important thing to note is this did not require a transportation conformity analysis, which is essentially air quality analysis. So all the projects that are included in this amendment are exempt from air quality analysis because there's no new capacity being added. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the commission?
I was kind of hoping for a couple more things in there, but I'm happy to see a few things. I'll leave it at that. I was hoping for for Eagle Canyon.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wishing to comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
5.3,
Mr. Chair, really quick too, just a note, hopefully that when we print the certificate and have the chairwoman sign that they spell her name properly. Jardone, started Jardin, but just saying, just checking, sorry. Going through my book here,
okay.
paying attention.
Passed English class.
I did.
Like it. 5.3, public hearing on public participation plan and approve the update to the public participation plan.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Rebecca Capular, Senior Planner with the RTC. I want to briefly go over our public participation plan update with you. The last plan we did was adopted in 2017, and the plan that we just updated, we added to it. We didn't take away. We did an executive summary, which we hadn't had before, and it just kind of cleaned up the document. We also incorporated Title VI and ADA. We wanted to make sure that we were marrying these two plans together with our Title VI plan and really trying to clean up the language so as we move forward and work with our federal partners and go for grants that everything is married there. We did we also learned a lot during the pandemic with virtual outreach, and we incorporated the virtual components into this plan. So now we have set in stone, we could do hybrid or virtual or in-person meetings. We found during the pandemic that the virtual meetings gained a lot of extra participation from the public that we hadn't had before, and so we're real happy to incorporate that into this plan. We took the plan draft to our advisory committees. We did the outreach, put it on our social media, did a 45-day public comment period, and that ended yesterday. So today we're before this board asking for your adoption of the new plan. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from the commission? Okay. Seeing none, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open it up to public comment. Anyone in the public wishing to this time? Ms. Uchel?
Good morning, Dora Martinez for the record. Just so I'm clear, because I tried to read the agenda yesterday, is the part section 6, is that referring to TOPS? What is it referring to?
Yeah, we can't answer questions from
Well,
the
I
dais.
couldn't see it because it was not accessible to my screen reader.
I can take that.
Well,
Thanks, Dora. For clarification, if this document pertained to the TOPS outreach, the TOPS program. So our public participation plan is a plan for all of our outreach, for all of our programs, all of our documents. So TOPS would be incorporated into that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So just have a really quick concern. I know that with the TOPS, it was regarding eliminating or limiting of the routes. And I got an email a week ago saying that Mark Maloney and Bill Thomas were recommending that it will not affect the ADA paratransit. And I'm bringing this to attention because every time I bring something up to the RTC, they always throw ADA at me, which is right. That's fine. But when referring to ADA, when there's ADA will not be running. So when there's a flex ride, I'm concerned that paratransit will not do door-to-door because there's a flex ride at Spanish Springs, Verdi and Boomtown, but there's no door-to-door paratransit going to those areas. So I just want to make sure that all of my peers who are in the Disability Pre-Action Coalition who uses paratransit because they cannot use the fixed route, that paratransit will not be eliminated when the 21 routes are not going to be running. That's just our concern. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the dais. Looking for a motion. I have a motion. Need a second? Second. Anybody? Bueller? Second. I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Discussion items and presentation 6.1, acknowledge receipt of the 2021 RTC Annual Report.
Hello again, Dan Dengis, Director of Planning for the record. It's that time of year where we like to reflect back on the previous calendar year. So you should have all received copies of the annual report in your packet. Highlights a number of accomplishments that the RTC has achieved in this past calendar year. Some good statistics, and rather than listen to me talk, we have a nice video prepared. I do want to acknowledge and thank Nicole Coots of my staff, who really herded a lot of cats to put together this report and also spent a lot of time preparing this video. I will note too that there is only music in the video, but we'll have a link up to this video that has captioning, so it will be accessible for all. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Lucy.
Chairman, thank you. You know, as I look back over the years of what we have undertaken here at this community and at this agency, this is tremendous. You know, and a few things that stand out to me is obviously the Audi Wells Improvements Multimodal Corridor. That's one of the big ones that I think that's going to be a tremendous project that we're going to look forward to in the future, and how that's going to improve this area between Sparks and Reno, around the Reno Livestock Event Center, which is such a primary, you know, and I've said it before at this board, that transit and roads are the nexus for any development or any kind of redevelopment within a community. And this Audi Wells project will really help to what Commissioner Hartung and I have talked about before, really help gentrify this area and truly bring forward maybe some new life with the expansion of the university, the Lemon Drive improvements that we've continued to work on. I'm very happy about all of the bus stop improvements that we're moving through phase 2, this making a lot of our bus stops. I know I drive by one improvement that S&C just finished last week out in South Meadows, but making sure that a majority of our bus stop improvements are now ADA compliant and really fulfilling that need. And improving the stops around the community. This has been a tremendous effort. I mean, on the outset of a pandemic year, to see this type of movement and really to see this kind of expansion within. And I know people don't necessarily are able to see all of what we do. Like I pointed out earlier in the budget, that we are a capital-driven budget, not necessarily a service-driven budget. But what we do as an agency for our capital projects really is represented here in this annual report and through that video. And I want to thank staff, all staff that put the time and effort to not only put this report together, but the work that has been put in over the last year. It has been tremendous, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. Thank you, Chairman. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Thomas? Oh, Oscar?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'll be quick. Thank you. That was a great outline of a lot of what we've been able to do and things to come. Just wanted to point out too, as my colleague there, with respect to the Audi Wells project, just super excited to see that moving forward. I drive through it about daily and just see the opportunities, and I think the future of transportation with respect to transportation with a healthcare lens. As we've known through the pandemic, those communities in the Northeast, and I grew up right there in Sparks, to see that we're taking health as part of our infrastructure and opportunities for those families. Not only for the new families moving in, but historically for those communities that have been there for generations. It's an opportunity that we are taking full pride with, and I appreciate RTC's commitment to it, and my colleagues as commissioners to see that. And so it's really exciting to see that develop in addition to all the other projects. So commend the team and the commissioners for the hard work, and it's just exciting to see. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to, I'll just take up the rear here. Everything from Lemon Drive to the Pyramid Highway upgrades, Audi Wells, what many of you may not know, and what Commissioner Lucy brought up and what we feel is that this project will help to gentrify this area. But there's a very large potential project that will happen with the rodeo grounds with the Heritage Foundation, and they want to build a brand new rodeo ground. They want to build a parking garage, a parking structure. I mean, it's a huge project, and it will really help to drive this area for not just jobs, but of course there'll be a lot of ingress egress, and that will be a great asset having the Audi Wells project done. I want to thank you guys for the flex rides projects, the pilots, especially into Sparks and Spanish Springs. You look at that number, 39,676. I will tell you, the farther you push out into Spanish Springs, which is growing exponentially right now, the more rides you will get in that area. I guarantee you, we have and I'm going to include myself in this, we have an aging population. And there's a lot of people that are retiring out in Spanish Springs, not necessarily large lots like I live on, but in some of the more condensed areas in Sparks and unincorporated. So thank you for that. You guys just, I mean, it proved the theory that if we do add it, if we build it, they will come. So I do want to thank staff, and I think that, you know, we've done a great job. There's a lot more to do. I don't think the public understands how big the lifts are for RTC. I mean, if we had an unlimited budget, we could, you know, go throughout the region. But then the complaint would be is that we're in endless construction, and people would hate us just as much for that. So I mean, I get constant complaints about construction. You know, you force me to go this way. I can't. The folks out in Lemon Valley, I got an earful from them not too long ago about ingress, egress from Lemon Valley, and those folks who live on the west side of Old 395 trying to access Lemon Valley and that. And so it's, it doesn't matter what we do, we're going to get complaints, but I think overall we're doing a really good job, and we're trying to keep up with it, but there's much more to do. So thank you so much. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman and Board, and I just wanted to add a couple comments. You know, I think as a group, we have a very humble staff that lets the work speak for what our efforts are. And as you saw in the earlier presentation, we're a flat organization. We haven't added people. In fact, there's a couple positions that we've eliminated, and I think that's in great part because of the dedication and motivation of the employees at RTC and focusing on their job. A lot of what we do, as the commissioners have pointed out, is not fully understood, and it's not necessary that the public know everything we do, but we're very focused on them experiencing the benefits of things we do. The things we do are very complex and very large and very impactful. Unfortunately, they don't move as quick as people would like, but that's just the nature of the beast. I did want to thank the board, though, because for us to be successful in what we do as the staff in any organization, but particularly this one, it requires that the leadership, which is the five of you, you're the voice for the public, the five of you. You're the ones who are duly elected to represent the people in our community. And your trust and direction and commitment to this board has helped us be successful, because I can assure you, if you didn't perform as board members the way you did, our job would be much more difficult. So I wanted to thank the five of you for all of your trust and patience and direction, and sometimes your impatience, because that helps us get things done. But I didn't want it to pass without, on behalf of the staff, thanking you for the trust you give us to get this job done.
Okay. And from me, the Audi Wells project, the neighbors are excited to get that done, and it's looking good. I drove through it this morning. The sound walls are going up, and we can start to see some light at the end of the tunnel. But the neighborhoods are very excited of that connectivity to bring, and especially connecting the Wells Avenue to Audi in the two Hispanic majority communities together, I think is an awesome deal, and it's great planning on the RTC's part. So thank you for that. And I haven't had any complaints about Audi yet, but I'm sure there's somebody out there. Okay. Do we need to vote on this?
An acknowledgement.
Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And I'm going to ask Commissioner Lucy to handle 6.2 for me.
That'd be my pleasure, Chairman, to do that. So every year we are asked as the board to rate the RTC for their overall performance as an agency, and this is we adopted a pay for performance policy back in 2013, and this increases our involvement into the agency's overall performance, and hence the presentation of the annual report previously to kind of outline some financial benefit towards in compensation, adjusting compensation for the staff for the oncoming years. And this is only a portion of that total consideration for that adjustment for compensation for staff, but it does play 1/3 of that portion of that compensation adjustment. And so every year, the agency or the board is asked to rate the agency in a range from 0.6 to 1.5, 1.5 being that highest possible rating to based upon the successes that adjust this. And this is not so. And this is available to all of the employees, directors, and will have but the directors will have the other 2/3 of the assessment of their the employees' overall performance and adjustment. But this will give every staff member at least that 1/3 availability. So, with that being said, Chairman, we are asked today to rate the agency, like I said, between 0.6 and 1.5. And historically, we have given over the last, since we've put this place in, either 1.3 to anywhere from 1.3 to 1.5 based upon the status of the annual report. So with that, Chairman, I will turn it back over to you for conversation.
Okay. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Hartung.
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. Thank you. As I go down this and look, it's easy to cast shadow, and throw shade. But I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to what we do, as Mr. Thomas outlined earlier. And I think staff has done an overall really great job, and my personal opinion is a rating this year of a 1.5.
Okay.
Chairman, and if I could add to Commissioner Hartung's comments, if you go through the appendix that is given to the staff, given by the staff, everything that was asked or outlined in the fiscal 2020 goals have been either completed or almost finally completed. They have done not only completed jobs, but planning has continued to move forward on a number of different projects. Our public outreach has continued to evolve, even through the loss of some of our staff members and some challenges through attrition. Our staff never missed a beat and continued to provide that outreach, even through some challenging times, and really helped navigate a lot of murky waters. So I would also support a 1.5 increase this year.
Mr. Delgado?
Thank you, Chairman. I also agree. I believe the RTC team has done a great job over the year. Efficient, met challenges face on, done an outstanding job, and I too would recommend a 1.5 grading as well.
Okay. And I will also. So I'm looking for a motion.
Chairman, I would move that as a Board of Commissioners, that we rate the agency and give them a score of 1.5 for fiscal year 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And now on to 6.3 is review a report of the RTC Director of Finance regarding fiscal year 2023 increase in the index fuel taxes in Washoe County that will become effective July 1, 2022, as required by NRS 373.067 and WCC 20.43416. Go ahead.
Hello again. Stephanie Haddock, Director of Finance. Actually, I'm going to be tag teaming this with legal counsel, Adam Spear. He's going to give a brief explanation about the indexing and the laws you just quoted. And then I will actually talk about the increase for this year.
Mr. Chairman, this is an item to provide information about the annual increase in the fuel tax that will go into effect on July 1st. The review is required by statute. It happens each year before July 1st. This is an informational item only. There's no action required. The indexing itself is automatic and happens pursuant to a formula that's reflected in the state statute and Washoe County Code. This item will not effectuate the adjustment. There's no action required by RTC, Washoe County, or any other governmental entity to effectuate the adjustment. Stephanie's going to walk through the formula and get into some of the details about how that works. But just wanted to make it clear that this item is simply a public review of how the formula works and the inputs that go into the formula, and not an action on whether or not the adjustment happens. In general, in the fuel tax, there have been a number of questions publicly recently about changing the fuel tax. I wanted to address that briefly just to get this on the record. The fuel tax is a function of previous voter approval, state statute, and Washoe County code. The fuel tax is a Washoe County tax. The RTC and this governing body do not have authority to change the fuel tax. Washoe County is also very limited in its ability to change the fuel tax. There's some key reasons for that. But at this time, one of the main reasons, or one of the key reasons, is that Washoe County has outstanding bonds that are secured by the fuel tax. And when it issued those bonds, it made promises to the bondholders that it wouldn't change the fuel tax as long as those bonds were outstanding. The Washoe County Code also states that the fuel tax won't be repealed while those bonds are outstanding. Even if that weren't the case, I would note that there are other legal and practical limitations that would exist on Washoe County's ability to change the fuel tax, but that's beyond the scope of the item that's here today. So with that, I can answer any questions that you might have at this time, or I'm also available to answer any questions as Stephanie presents the review.
Questions from the commission? Mr. Hartung?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Spear, we continue to get emails from various folks that claim that we can put a temporary hiatus on those indexing taxes. And Mr. Thomas, it's 1.7 cents this year?
1.89.
1.89. Okay, I beg your pardon. Thank you, Ms. Haddock. So it's just under 2 cents per gallon that it indexes this year. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've just outlined a couple of issues, some obligations that we have regionally to those bondholders. Do we, and maybe this is again a difficult question for you to answer, do we have any ability to approach Washoe County, to approach the Washoe County Commission to say, wait a minute, you guys, you do have some ability to pull those taxes back and to basically put just a halt on them, a temporary halt? And maybe I've phrased that incorrectly.
If I understand your question, I think I have an answer. We certainly could start that conversation, but based on my legal review of the authority that the county would have, there would not be an ability for the county to cap the taxes at this time.
Okay.
And so I don't think that conversation would go very far.
Or to even put a holiday on them.
No.
That is correct.
Okay, right. That's what I'm asking. Okay. Yeah, and again, we get a lot of question on this. We have a lot of people who say you have that ability, and I've had conversation with our legal counsel. They've done some deep dives into this, and their answers come up consistent with yours. And so we need to put this stuff on the record. It's not a situation where we can say, okay, we're just gonna put a holiday on these fees.
That's correct, and it's a difficult topic to talk about with the public. The statutes themselves are pretty complicated, and working through some of the issues to understand it can be complex. But once you do that, it is pretty straightforward in terms of the answer of how it ultimately works. And I've talked with counsel for the county and have also confirmed that they're looking at it the same way that we're looking at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Chairman, if I may, on the Washoe County Commission, I serve as the legislative liaison, and I work in Carson City quite frequently with a number of these issues. Chairman Hartung and I have taken this on significantly. RTC 5 was passed by the vote of the people to support road projects here in Washoe County by indexing fuel tax. And when that vote was passed, the indexing was to occur every year, and that would be implemented through RTC Washoe to build those roads and supplement also transit throughout the community. Now, all the fuel tax does not go all to building roads. It goes to transit. It is divided. And
Fuel tax.
portion.
Fuel tax, sales taxes.
Sales tax, I'm sorry, thank you,
not
portion.
fuel tax.
But the Washoe County as a whole, because it is the only taxing authority within the region, we are the ones that back all of the taxing within the community. So we are the bond holder, and we have finance bonds that are secured by that fuel tax. Hence the reason it goes through the Washoe County Commission and under Washoe County Code. But as Commissioner Hartung and our legal counsel, Mr. Spear, has pointed out, this is clearly outlined in NRS 373-067 that this is not something that can be halted, stopped, or changed. It has to have legislative action by the legislature through session and signed by the governor to change this or give the counties any ability to put a cap or stop on this at any time. So it is not at the governance of this board. It's not even at the governance of the Washoe County Commission as a taxing authority to stop this, because it was a vote of the people in RTC 5 to move this tax forward. And that's just really the crux of it. And I want to continue to point out that for those individuals that think understandingly that we can't control inflation, we can't control what goes on a global standpoint, and it is difficult for anybody to go to the fuel tanks, anybody to go to the gas station right now and put a $5 gallon of gas into your tank, and we understand that, because we all the same have vehicles or are reliant on transportation to get us around in this community. And it's not easy, but this is not something that we have any authority over at this time and need to just move forward with. And so those are my comments, Mr. Chairman, just for a little bit of clarification in regards to the fuel taxing and what this board is being asked to do.
Okay, any other comments? I think for this to happen at this point, we'd have to call a special session of the legislature, bring all those people back, have them vote on this particular item and to make this change. I just don't see that happening, number one. Number two, it won't be addressed at the earliest without a special session until the 2021 legislative session. But you have to also, it's the people of Washoe County that created this tax, and so you would have to have the state overrule the wishes of the county residents, and I'm not sure that can happen. It's a complicated issue for sure, and trust me, I feel the pain at the pump just as much as anyone else. Paying $5.60 for diesel is crazy, but it's part of it. It's happened before. It'll happen again, and it'll come back down too. So I get the problem. We're just in a perfect storm with the pandemic, the influx of all the federal money to the system, and the fact that now people are having to go back to work and drive again. So I understand it, and I know it's a burden for those families that are just getting by. But we're also short on baby formula, and 99% of all of our stuff that gets moved around America is done by trucks and diesel. So it's a burden for everyone, and it's not just a Washoe County issue. So with that, then I'm looking for a motion to accept the report. If there's no other questions.
I think it just says informational only. Do you need us to accept the report?
No, this is, go ahead, Adam.
There's no action required on this item.
Okay.
But Stephanie, I believe you have a presentation prepared.
Well, I'll briefly go over, as you said, the formula. I just want to point out, yes, since 2010, the voters did vote to start indexing our fuel tax to the producer price index, and it is specific for other non-residential construction goods. So it is intended to offset the inflationary costs of putting the road projects in, constructing those road projects, which we are seeing inflationary increases in just the cost of putting our road construction projects out. So, that's what this was intended to do. It's a 10-year rolling average, and, there was some good wisdom in that, and because it does flatten or help smooth out periods like this where we're seeing high inflation. The current inflation for the producer price index is around 16% for the non-residential construction. But the inflation index to the actual tax that we're going to see with the 10-year rolling average is 2.4%. So again, having that average helps lower and smooth out these high peaks, and then you have valleys. As we mentioned, it will be a 1.89 cent increase starting July 1st in gas taxes. Also want to point out that, yes, we pledged this revenue source to our, what is now $305 million in outstanding bonds. So it is also one of the things that, should the legislature take this issue up, there is a potential for bond impairment by removing that pledged revenue from those bond sources, from that debt service. So again, just pointing that out. I know there'll be maybe some future discussions about it. I also want to point out we recently refunded our bonds in 2018 and 2019. Before, with the refunding, our debt service annually was $30 million. Now it is $23 million a year. So more money going towards the road construction project. So again, the indexing is helping pay for all those road construction projects that you see, and maybe giving you some headaches as you drive. But this money is being put out into the community. It's creating jobs, and it is being well used.
Chairman, if I may too, and just one thing I want to point out is, as Ms. Haddock pointed out, we saw a massive increase from last year's PPI commodity index, which a lot of this is based upon, and her point is your point is also well taken, is that it's not just about the gas that we put in our vehicles, but it's the gas that we utilize to build those roads. The oil that's in the oil that we have to buy, and the construction for all the pavement that we need to put down. Those types of projects cost money, and it's not just subsidizing new projects. This is paying for projects that are already existing that we have already paid for. And so this is a significant, not an ongoing thing, but this is also covering a lot of our and we could say a special session, but I hardly doubt that even if a special session would count, that even senators would, there's an assembly make this up, because this was a vote of the people and passed by a vote of the people. And so the only way that this would change is that to go back to a vote of the people to have this be reversed for enabling legislation. And so realistically, if I understand the pain of the pump, but this is something that we asked for and have to be prepared for sometimes the unintended consequences of the ask that we have. So those are my final comments, and I promise I'll be quiet now, Chairman.
Just a fast question for Mr. Spear. Talk to me briefly about bond impairment. What could happen to us if we basically
What would happen to Washoe County?
well, precisely us. I'm pretty sure, Mr. Chairman, you live in Washoe
sir,
County
I
and
do.
you're a
I do
taxpayer.
live in Washoe County.
Okay, good. All right. Just wanted to make sure. Wasn't sure. What could potentially happen to us if we were to impair the funding stream on those bonds?
Well, I should preface this by saying I'm not an expert in public finance and the issues you're talking about.
Maybe Stephanie.
Bond cancel.
Yeah.
But it would be a question for Washoe County to address with bond counsel and want to carefully consider.
Right.
But in general,
I believe we would have to come up with the money for those bonds, would we not? Yes. We'd have to refund them.
Yes.
you'd face adverse action from bondholders potentially if you took action that impaired their security, and they would have certain remedies and rights underneath the bond covenants that Washoe County has entered into.
That's my point. That's my point. We would have to come up with many
Taxpayers would pay for it one way or another.
one way or another. Exactly. Right. Taxpayers would pay for it one way or another. That's the point of this, is that we cannot impair that funding stream.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Mr.
Again,
Chair.
this is a non-action item, so that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Chairman and board members. As if you haven't noticed, there's a certain theme to today's meeting. And I want to carry on with that. So you've heard it, but I want to publicly acknowledge it now that this is there's a pretty big, important retirement to our organization that happens today. And I think the fact that Stephanie is retiring after delivering the most important thing that she does each year, which is the budget, is a testament to her commitment to us as an organization. Now, an organization is only as good as the people who lead it and participate in it. And I would say that my experience with Stephanie, that has been directly only 2 years over her 25-year career, is she does represent the type of employee that makes sure organizations are successful. In this particular case, it's been, as Commissioner Lucy said, in our budget, which is, of course, probably one of the most important things because everything we do does require funds, and it requires somebody to have an eye out, not only for the interest of the organization, but the citizens too. And so Stephanie's done a stellar job and has put us in a great position as an organization. And it's in part from the skills she's developed, the skills she brought to the job, but also her personal commitment to RTC, which has amazed me from the beginning and continues, like I said, to the fact that she would have her last day here being presenting to us. And I would add something that the public doesn't see and the commissioners don't really see is that we recently completed our federal required triennial review, which is the federal government comes in every 3 years and looks at everything we do and basically pores over all the details of the operations of RTC and concludes whether we, one, are an agency that's trustworthy in terms of going forward and getting more federal funds, but also our focus and commitment on the rules and the regulation, the processes that the feds require. And I would share with you, which we haven't got back yet, but that we did have the conclusion of the conversation with the auditor and the FTA leadership, and they were extremely complimentary of Stephanie and Jennifer, the two that led it, but also all of the RTC employees. So when we get that report, I'll share with the board, but it was very exciting to see those kind of comments from a federal agency that rules everybody across the country, to really point out the exceptional nature of our employees and how committed they are and how well run we are in terms of what the federal expectations are. So just briefly to bring this all into perspective, Stephanie started her 25-year career at RTC on May 13th, 1997 as a finance specialist 1 and was promoted to financial analyst 2 in 1999. She was later reclassified to senior financial analyst in 2005. Stephanie was promoted to financial manager in 2007 and then to the director of finance, chief financial officer in 2014. She's been critical in overseeing and leading audits, budgets, grants, financial reporting, bonding, accounts payable, accounts receivable, fixed assets, and payroll. More recently, as I just said, Stephanie took the responsibility to lead to work with a small team to lead the triennial review and also to lead procurement. Stephanie has also been a valuable contributor to the Employee Event Committee, something that most people wouldn't know. And we will miss you, Stephanie, and we'll miss your wealth of institutional knowledge and your skills and your ability to be honest and straightforward and keep us aligned financially. So I wanted to, on behalf of all the employees of RTC, thank you for your public service, and also on behalf of the community, express my appreciation for your 25 years of commitment to the people of Washoe County. And with that, we have a little video we want to share.
All right, I'm just going to say one final goodbye. And again, it's been a wonderful career. I highly encourage anybody who's ever thinking about working for the public and the government. It's an absolute wonderful experience. It is. I'm proud that, I've seen a lot of things happen. We got to participate in a lot of great projects, and I've loved every minute. It is a very sad day for me, a happy and a sad day. But I know this agency is going to continue to do great things. It's, as Bill has said, the people here are wonderful, and they're dedicated, and they're terrific at what they do. And it shows all the time. And I'm leaving it in great hands. I know that. That's why I feel confident leaving and knowing that there's going to be only more great things to come. I will still be around. And you might see me popping up at a few board meetings. I definitely want to come to the first board meeting in our new remodeled facility for RTC board meetings and check that out. So don't worry, I'm not disappearing forever, but thank you again for everything and for this wonderful career. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
So to continue on the theme of RTC employees, I wanted to congratulate Blaine Peterson, who's one of our engineers too. He'll be celebrating his 15th-year anniversary at RTC on June 18th. I would also like, as we're doing acknowledgements, our outgoing RTC Commissioner, Reno Councilmember Oscar Delgado. Commissioner Delgado has been a tireless champion for the transportation and safety for our community and its constituents. Not only did he help us flip the switch on a new traffic signal at the intersection of Veterans Parkway and Long Meadows Drive in Reno recently, but he also kicked off the Audi Wells Multimodal Improvement Project, which I know is a project that has been years in the making and certainly a project that he's been a huge champion on for a long time, and I'm sure will continue to be, even though he may not be on this board. He's been a critical part of this board, helping to make decisions that will shape our community to make it a better place for all of us. So on behalf of the employees of RTC and the community, Commissioner Delgado, I wanted to thank you for your service to this board and all you've done to better the transportation network of our county.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I may, it's kind of a thank you for those kind words, and it's been an honor to serve on this board with my fellow commissioners and, of course, with the team of RTC, as we've seen over numerous meetings, and whether in public or behind closed doors, your professionalism, your commitment to community has just been great and amazing, and I just appreciated working so closely with all of you. I tend to be quiet at public meetings only because we are so professional. You guys are professional staff. We're lucky as a community to have all of you. You answered all my questions truthfully, honestly, and transparently, and the community should feel proud. And so the only times I really want to speak up is to ask questions that I believe the community may need, but not to hear myself talk. And you guys do a wonderful job, and I appreciate so much the opportunity to be here. Mr. Thomas, I look forward to continuing to work with all of you guys. It's been an honor to advocate and also support great projects that we are benefiting from as a community. Audi Wells is just one more. We have tons more work to do, and I know you guys will be able to accomplish that here in the near future. So again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the honor. We'll be putting my appointment for the next chair, for the next appointee at the commissioner next month. And so I'm sure the next representative from the city of Reno will be just as delighted and happy and honored to serve as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Moving on, Chairman, I did want to, on a little more less positive note, I did want to take a moment to remember former RTC Commissioner David Humke, who passed away earlier this month. Commissioner Humke served on the RTC board from 2003 to 2011 and was the RTC chair in 2007 and 2008. He specifically supported the Moana Lane project, improving transit operations, and the Southeast Connector project. He will be remembered for his honesty, being a quick study, and his dry sense of humor. We as an agency would like to thank him for his service to our community. This upcoming Monday, May 23rd, NDOT will submit an FHWA infra grant application, known statutorily as the National Significant Freight and Highway Projects Program, for the US 395 Phase 2 and the North Virginia Multimodal Improvements Project. If successful, the requested $76 million of federal grant funding will accelerate the proposed US 395 improvements between Golden Valley Road interchange and the Stead Boulevard interchange, as well as implementing a multimodal improvement along North Virginia Street from McCarran Boulevard north to Panther Valley. I'd like to particularly thank NDOT staff and also Christina for having a great staff to work with, and the RTC staff for collaborating on a very tight schedule. A lot of times what people don't understand with these federal grants is they come out, there's a lot of discussion about them, and then there's like a 2 or 3 week window to respond. So one would wonder how much response they want it with all the detail they want with those. But I think the NDOT team, along with the RTC staff and the consultant that we retained, we were able to pull this together and make a what I hope will be a successful application that is very professionally prepared and again would go in next week. Last comment I want to make is I wanted to acknowledge and thank our incredible community who turned out yesterday for our seniors. Yesterday was our annual Stuff a Bus for Seniors event at Sparks Target. We hold this event in conjunction with Washoe County Human Services, KOL Cares, and Sparks Target. Thanks to our generous community, we were able to stuff a bus full of donations for our local seniors. These items that were received yesterday will be distributed to seniors in need by the staff at Washoe County Senior Center. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I conclude my report.
Okay. You have anything on the federal side?
Other than the infra grant application, nothing really new. There is a report in your packet, but nothing that I feel needs to be brought or highlighted today.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to our Ndot report.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's good to be here. Sorry I've missed a couple of months scheduling and things, and so it's really good to be here and see you and talk about what's going on at NDOT. I should note that while I was missing your board meetings, I was still spending just as much time as I do up here, and enjoying the weather, enjoying the changes to the roads. All right, safety. So I shouldn't be all dour. I mean, because it's better than it was last year, but it's still not great. 99 people have lost their lives on our roads this year. That is a 12.5% almost reduction from last year. I should note across the state, it's actually probably a little more dramatic than that because Clark County has actually seen an increase year over year and a fairly significant one. So if we pulled Clark County out, I think the statewide numbers would be even more improved than that. We'll get into the Washoe County data specifically on the next slide, but the rate of fatalities in Washoe County was down nearly 40% at 37% as of April 30th. However, as you may be well aware and have noticed, over the last few weeks, we've seen a disturbing increase in crashes across northern Nevada here in Washoe County. And I'll probably be talking about that next month with the specific data. So while the numbers are lower this month through April 30th, I expect we'll see some changes next. At NDOT, we're really focusing on what we need to do to stem the tide of crashes and what we can do to keep travelers safe on our roads. And you'll see on there the top contributing factors are impairment and speeding. And so we are developing a statewide speed management action plan. I think we actually spoke about it a little bit in January, and we began the effort last spring to really look at what the strategies are for managing speed on the state highway network. We're collaborating with partner agencies, and we're really looking to identify appropriate engineering, enforcement, and educational countermeasures and strategies to reduce speed-related crashes. I should note that all speed-related crashes are not necessarily speeding. And so there are crashes that happen simply. You may have been going this posted speed limit, but because something happened it still resulted in a crash even at that speed. And also that our roads and our arterials, many of our roads are posted such that if you're biking or walking along that corridor, if somebody crashes into you, there's a high likelihood of a fatality. And that's the design that we implemented with our roads. 45 miles an hour is too fast to survive for most people if they're not in a vehicle. And so if we really want to start looking at how we reduce fatalities on our roads, I think we're going to need to go beyond just addressing the speeding component, which is what this speed management action plan is really starting with, beyond reducing speeding, and really start looking at the granular level of what can we do on our specific corridors, and do we want to make those changes that will ensure everybody gets home every day, whether it's from work or from school or from something more fun than that. So we're really looking at it. It is a focus of ours, and I know it's a focus of yours, and I'm looking forward to working together on getting us to a place where our roads are safe. I should also note, before I go on the next slide, a change that we've made regarding speeding and speed studies. So interestingly, in the past, I think, we'd get a comment or a question from our communities, and they'd say, it's posted at 45, everybody's going 65, can you do a speed study? So we would do a speed study, and we'd look at it and we'd be like, right, you know what, they are going faster than that. And oftentimes the answer was increase the speed limit. I've pushed back on the team and I said, well, we set that speed limit for a reason. If we're not getting the behavior we want at that speed limit, maybe we need to look at how we change the road to get compliance with that speed limit. Or has the context changed such that that speed limit is no longer an appropriate speed limit for the context of the road? So we're also looking at that and really making sure that the speed limit that we've posted is appropriate to the context of the road. And if we're not getting compliance with that speed limit, what do we need to do to make sure that the road is designed appropriately? So some changes. We've been having these conversations already for a couple of years, but I don't know that I've actively communicated that and articulated that, so I thought I would. All right, so as I told you, Washoe County, 7 lives. It says year to date. That's through end of April. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. That's through end of April. 7 people lost their lives in Washoe County. That's almost a 30% increase, or 37% decrease from last year. Pedestrian fatalities remained the same year over year, with 2 pedestrians having lost their lives as of April 30th. Bicycle fatalities were 0 through April 30th. And at the time of the data, there was 1 motorcyclist fatality in Washoe County, down from 3 last year. But as I did mention, we've seen a disturbing increase in recent weeks of fatal crashes. And 2 of those crashes were within 1 hour of each other. I'm not entirely sure if they were both in Washoe County, but last weekend there were 2 motorcycle crashes up near Virginia City within 1 hour of each other. Nevada State Police have been reminding riders to always ride within their skill level. I think about that because I think when the roads are wide open and the day is beautiful and you're just enjoying it, that it might be easy to get out a little bit past because you're having fun. Ride within your skill level. We echo that. And we also remind drivers to always share the road and be aware that there are other users out there. And I would say drive within your skill level too. Drivers need to do that too because, again, same sort of thing could happen. Nevada State Police reports that many of the recent fatalities in our area highways were caused by what we've been talking about: speed, impairment, and in this case, they're also adding inattention and aggressive driving. So I don't know what's going on out there, but we all deserve to get home safely every day. And we need to figure out how we can do that together. It's going to take all of us working together to do that. All right, so it's May, which means it's National Bike and it's also National Motorcycle Awareness Month. I guess the rest of the world doesn't realize that we can ride bikes and motorcycles almost year-round, throughout Nevada. Up in southern Nevada, they can do it year-round. Well, in summer it gets a little warm. But up here, you can almost do it year-round. My husband was riding his motorcycle up here throughout the winter, so definitely something we do year-round. But this specific month, we are really recognizing and reminding folks that People are out, they're using different modes, which is great. We encourage that. We're working to make sure our system works for folks no matter their mode. And earlier this month, we've seen some bike and walking events planned with our school partners, Safe Routes to School partners. Elementary schools throughout the region had bike safety days, educational assemblies, and bike to school days. And like I mentioned, it's also Motorcycle Awareness Month. And we're reminding everyone to make sure they're wearing a DOT-approved helmet, not to speed, never drive impaired. I mean, all of that kind of goes with everybody. And I think as drivers, when we're not on a motorcycle, it's critical that we remember that we have to drive safe around the motorcycles as well, and that you may not always see them. I remember when I was when I moved, almost 30 years ago, when I moved to Nevada, I had a friend who had also moved at the same time. We'd met, we were going somewhere, and he was on his motorcycle. And I knew he was there, and I knew we were traveling along the same corridor. I totally lost him. I went to look, he was, and I lost him. And nothing happened. You know, I decided, because I didn't know where he was, I wasn't going to change lanes. But it's so easy to not see the motorcycle. And so you may hear it, but if you don't know where it is, maybe don't make that lane change. Be very cognizant and aware, because they're out there, and you know, and I think about this too. One of the things I think sometimes we do with motorcyclists is we think about the motorcyclist who buys the motorcycle for the recreational vehicle, for the fun vehicle. But I also remember that a lot of people, the motorcycle is their only vehicle. It is a far more affordable option than a car. It's far more fuel efficient. We were talking about fuel taxes a second ago. It's far more fuel efficient. And so, you know, every single person out there, regardless of why they're using our road, if they're using it for fun or they're using it just to get to where they need to go, we need to be aware of them and make sure they get there safely. All right, advisory working group. I've been, well, me and my team, because it's not just been me the whole time, we've been talking about this on a monthly basis. We did not have a meeting in May. Because our team is hard at work, the consulting team is hard at work, using the information that the advisory group has provided them to really develop some scenarios and some plans moving forward. We will have our next meeting on June 14th, but that meeting, it was going to be in person, it was going to be full all day. It's actually now going to be a virtual 3-hour meeting. As they're diving into the information that we have, they're now really starting to look at, like, what are the legislative impacts? How would these mechanisms move forward in a legislative manner, and really trying to get into those details to make sure that the recommendations are truly implementable. So they need a little more time, but they also need some more feedback. So it'll be a 3-hour virtual meeting on June 14th. Overall, the study remains on schedule, and we're looking forward to the recommendations. And I say we because Ndot is just one component of this advisory working group. It is a reminder, it is 29 folks from across the state really looking at understanding what the challenge is if we don't fully fund the system, and how we might be able to get to a point where the system is fully funded to deliver not just a well-maintained system, but a system that works for everyone, and including all of that new growth area that we frequently talk about here. How do we deliver the program to those areas? Once the recommendations are provided to the legislature at the end of the year, it will be up to the legislature to decide what to do with those recommendations, how to implement them and move them forward. And I should note that it will take all hands on deck. It will require all of us, and we should all be willing to come to that table and have those conversations, because we can maintain the system or we can continue to grow. We can't continue to grow at the same rate and maintain the system. So we're going to have to figure it out, and it's important to our communities for economic development, for jobs, and really for the future of our state. So looking forward to those recommendations. All right, a couple of project updates. SBX, how many, have you guys driven on the new pavement yet? Nice, right? Yeah, I drove on it, I think Sunday night and Tuesday, and it's so great. So I think we're calling this the sneak peek, because it's not the full version, but we're getting to see a little bit of what it's going to be like. If you haven't driven on it yet, be aware. While the pavement is nice, now the lane shifts are a little bit different, and you might get in a lane and get forced to exit if you're not paying attention. So marathon week of closures, comprehensive coordination, and drivers are now on the new southbound lanes, including 6 new bridges and approximately 18 months of construction progress. The crews are now working on the middle lanes of 580 from the Spaghetti Bowl to Mill Street through the spring and the summer. The second phase of the railroad bridge widening is anticipated in the next couple of months, and crews will be striping northbound 580 with nightly lane closures. There's some pretty cool cranes in the median right now. I was carpooling with Darren this morning, and all of a sudden he's like, "Look at those counterweights!" So there's some cool stuff to see out there if you're tuned in and paying attention. The eastbound I-80 to southbound 580 ramp remains reduced one lane, as we've been reporting the last few months. Daytime lane reductions on Mill and Second are ongoing, as well as the continuing intermittent east-north and east-south ramp closures. Kitski Lane has also has some ongoing overnight full closures with notice provided. And tonight through early Monday morning, drivers will see weekend-long closure of 4th Street underneath 580 for bridge work. Detours will be available. And we just remind motorists that travel delays should be expected in the area. We encourage motorists to consider alternate routes and allow for extra travel time, slow down, and be attentive to new merge and lane patterns. I got caught. I was like, whoa, I'm going to get, so just be aware. I drive that pretty often now, and I'm always amazed at how well everyone does seem to be navigating the changes and just being patient with each other. So continue to do that. The light is at the end of the tunnel at this point. And I'm excited to see the final project later this year. All right. Next one, Mount Rose Corridor Study Update. Just another update on the corridor study. The team has finalized their recommendations and prepared a draft report. The team, as a reminder, is Ndot, the City of Reno, Washoe County, the RTC, Nevada State Police, and the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency, along with many local stakeholders. Last year, we hosted 2 public meetings to gather stakeholder and public feedback on corridor needs. We used that feedback to develop vision concepts for the future of the highway. So the vision concepts were based off of the feedback we received. Community members have been able to provide their feedback on the plan before it's finalized. Public comment period ended on May 18th, and we'll be finalizing concepts for the short, medium, and long-term projects that will improve safety and traffic movement. We anticipate the projects will be included and prioritized with our statewide needs in the One Nevada Transportation Plan, and some of those projects may already be in our program next year. I know that there was some conversation at the last month about study, and when are you going to deliver? Some of those projects we anticipate will already be in the program starting this coming year. The plan can be reviewed at dot.nv.gov/Mount Rose. I think this is my last project update. So one more project update, Highway 28-431 project. We are, as you know, we're working on a pavement preservation and improvement project on State Routes 28 and 431 up at Lake Tahoe. And we appreciate Commissioner Lucy meeting with some of our project team last month and are pleased we could provide some project design plans for additional reference. Sections of these mountainous highways were last fully reconstructed nearly 14 years ago, and the project is aimed at repaving for a smoother, safer ride and more preserved network. As part of this project, we're also improving accessibility by bringing sidewalk curb ramps up to ADA standards. As a highway agency, these sidewalk improvements are primarily within our right-of-way. At the Crystal Bay Casino, we will though work slightly outside of our right-of-way to meet grading standards, highway grading standards, and the casino has given us permission to work in their property to make sure the necessary changes tie into the new sidewalk and ADA ramps. The tie-in is required due to the existing surface. At Jim Kelly's Nugget, we'll tie into the parking lot completely within our right-of-way. This will allow us to improve the highway sidewalk in front of the Nugget, but does not use taxpayer funds to pave private property to the doors of the business. On the corridor, we're also installing drainage and guardrail improvements to enhance roadside safety and water quality, ensuring additional stormwater treatment before reaching Lake Tahoe. The project will not remove any existing roadway lights, although some of the lights may be relocated. And we appreciate the board's interest in the project and have been enjoying the opportunity to keep stakeholders and community members updated on the project through our public outreach program. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Mr. Lucy?
Thank you. Stephanie, Christina, it is always good to see you. Thank you for coming and participating today. It's nice to hear that the study is in draft format for the 431 study. If possible, could I get a copy of that draft format, or look at that privately if that's something that you would be willing to do? I just would like to take a look at that. I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, we'll figure out the best way to do that.
Okay, that'd be great. I want to move forward. I want to ask a couple questions too. And you brought it up, and if you can go back to your last slide on the state route 28431. So the paving, my understanding is that the paving will continue coming up from the summit of 431 down to the roundabout. They started, last week, I believe? I think so, and I think they're coming down to the roundabout, and then they'll start, I think, mid-June from the Bonanza area or Ponderosa Ranch and pave through towards this section, and this will be the last section that they complete of the project towards the end of the summer, from what the project managers had informed me. So the reason I asked for this picture to come back up is that it's a challenged piece in the sense that on both sides of the street you have the old Biltmore, you have the Crystal Bay Club, you have Jim Kelly's Nugget, and you have the 3 properties plus the Calneva that's kind of right here but is closed. And when we talk about gateways to Nevada, I usually, from our CVA standpoint, I say, obviously Reno is the gateway to California. For us, it's our front door. This in the Tahoe Basin, this really is our front door into not only Washoe County, but into Nevada for that matter. And it has been in a state of disrepair, and I'm super happy that it is going forward. The challenge that I have, though, is that when I talked to your project engineers, they said that the lighting was not part of there is current lighting improvements along the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is really small. It narrows and widens, and so the complete plan looks wonderful that we're bringing up to ADA standards, but there isn't any crosswalk. There's only one crosswalk improvement that has actual lighting there, but there is lighting that moves along the crosswalks that kind of walks from the actual post office at the turn heading towards Crystal Bay and Incline Village, that a lot of these individuals that live in this community, because there is a lot of people who live off of Wasu and different areas there, they walk that area to get to and from not only TART, but also to get on to the post office and a number of different things. And they use that lighting, and especially in the wintertime. And what I was told is that the lighting that is there, that was part of the initial project to do the redevelopment, is not going to be replaced nor included. So the only lighting that's going to stay is the lighting at the crosswalk, which is right in front of Jim Kelly's Nugget and the Biltmore. But the Biltmore is currently under construction, and the west side, or would be the north side of that road, will be under construction. And so that crosswalk will be closed and not actually be part, and the actual developer will do that improvement itself. So the only side will be on the south side for quite some time, for maybe a year and a half or two. And if there's no lighting for individuals after the crosswalk, there's really no way for the individuals that live in the residential side, which is on the north side, to kind of traverse safely to and from the bus stops and to and from the public areas there. And what your project engineers had addressed to me is that the only way to do that is that I had to write a letter to you and to the governor to ask for those improvements to be added to the project, because the project had already been bid. And so I was kind of perplexed by that when I was told that was not built into the project, that the lighting at the sidewalk was the only thing built in, and that it couldn't be changed and augmented. And I said, well, I don't think that's true, but that's what they told me to. So I am now asking you in a public forum if I could submit to you some way, shape, or form to do some kind of construction change order that would increase the lighting alongside of that ADA sidewalk that you're building. Is in existence, but just needs to be repaired and brought up to standard. That would be the only ask that we had, and Commissioner Hill and I were both there and kind of perplexed by the request. And it seems like the property owners and everybody would be in compliance, and the property owners are happy to move forward and do any improvements on their own property. Washoe County has property that we're willing to make improvements for them, but from the project engineers, they said it was their responsibility was for only the crosswalk and the lighting at the crosswalk, and that was it. And
All right, so I don't know what the actual answer to you is going to be, but I am going to take it back to the team. We'll take a look at it, and we may need to have another meeting. So, because I took lighting, what I wrote was lighting concerns.
Yes.
Right, because there was a lot of detail in there that I couldn't track all of it. So
I get you. There's a lot of
we'll
detail.
look at it for sure.
Yeah, and if I can get on just maybe you and I on a sidebar, if we could talk about that, that would be fantastic. The other thing I wanted to move forward with is we've had this discussion before, is, the kind of where are we at with the progress and maybe the transfer of those state roads within the region back to Washoe County. Specifically one that's important to me is State Route. Oh God, now I didn't have it written down right away, but State Route 671, which is Holcomb Ranch Lane, that goes up Huffacre, down Lakeside Drive, when it turns into Holcomb Ranch Lane and comes back in. And we have a number of projects in residential area, and that's a state highway that needs to be transferred. But when you look at the number of state highways that we have, Glendale is State Highway 648, Sun Valley Road is State 443, Pyramid Highway 444, McCarran is 659, Kitski Lane is State Route 667. These are all state highways that obviously are in the state together to maintain, but for these one-offs like 671 and different roads like that really are no longer within kind of a connector, I'd really like to move forward with that. What we can do, if we have to do something at the legislature, or is that something we can do just individually, really want to move forward with those because of the needs for those improvements.
Happy to do so. We just need to negotiate the agreement.
Perfect. If we can continue to make that a priority, that would be great. Then that is really all I have. But I do want to thank you for all the work that your staff has done. The one last thing I did want to bring up is advance warning signals. At the last meeting, I asked Darren to provide me with some crash info that was provided. Asked about our constituents. And there was an accident on northbound, or I should say westbound, 431 up, and it happened. It happened on, I can tell you right now, April 23rd, and at 10:34 in the evening, and it was between two individuals, a 55-year-old woman and a 62-year-old male, and they were traveling up Mount Rose Highway, and there was just no warning for the signals, and they crashed into each other at Thomas Creek intersection. And that was been one of the places on that uphill movement where we removed the advanced warning signals. And once again, as I pointed out to Mr. Tedford last time, especially for 431 with that geometry, and I understand that removal of the AWS, the advanced warning signals, was something that's an industry standard. We felt that it's not conducive when we've done studies and whatnot. But I would also contend, when I have this fight with my engineers all the time, is that when you talk about specific situations, there's always unique spots. As you've left AWS on the downhill approach, you took it off on the uphill approach. But why I would say that it needs to be at the uphill approach is because of the geometry of that road, because of the grade, and as you're moving up, especially in the winter months, the glare that comes off that mountain, the visibility, the site visibility, the things that maybe an engineer might not take it might not fit into an equation, but realistic in real time, that does have an impact on the community. It has an impact on drivers. Late nights, especially glare coming off the hills because of the geometry. It can impose drivers' ability to see those lights in a timely manner, and it's not enough. Even flashing warning lights are not enough, and even the flashing warning lights have been removed. So there's nothing, now that you're just approaching that Thomas Creek intersection and hoping that they see that sign and those lights in enough time to prepare to stop. And they're thinking that yellow or that red will be enough, and it already has not been. And so I saw that a signal change came back up, sign came, that signal changes were going to come up starting 5:15, which was a couple weeks ago, and nothing has changed. So I was kind of interested to see what that was about in regards to that Thomas Creek, Mount Rose intersection. But Commissioner Hartung and I've said this time and time again about the AWS. It is challenging, and I know that there are standards out there, but we've created a situation out of something that we've created a problem when we didn't really have one. And I understand why you think that maybe there was, but I'm not seeing the benefit so far. And I'm hoping that you're right, but I'm not seeing it so far. And I just wanted to share with you my concerns and the concerns of my citizens along 431. And we've heard it here at the commission, at the Washoe County Commission, from citizens from Pyramid Highway as well. This is something that should not have been changed, and just should have had a little bit more detail and a little bit more communication prior to those changes. And the frustration is still there with the community. And so I just wanted to make sure that I shared that and put that on the record with you. And I know it's not, I know directly not within your purview, but I just wanted to share you with the sentiment from our constituents.
Thank you for sharing it. I believe we did get you the crash data.
Yes, and I do have that.
And I hear you that you're not seeing the benefit yet, but I also heard you say yet. So I think we need to let the system be fully implemented, and we need to let time pass. Crashes, if you were to look at this last month or last 2 weeks of crashes, you could be very reactive to what's going on all across the county.
Right.
And I don't know that any of those things would, because there's lots of other things that go into crashes. So I think we need to allow the system to be fully implemented. It is in progress. On the other deployment of the system, we went out, we made the changes. In this case, we decided we were going to do a phased implementation, so we haven't even fully seen. And in that intersection, we may have fully seen, I don't know for sure. The only other thing I wanted to say is that our team was very deliberative about where they looked at the instances, and that's why in some cases, there is still something there. It may not be what it was before, but there is still something. Some they didn't change at all. So they did look at each individual instance. I don't know if they looked at the glare. In this case, I think the crash was, I think you said at 10:34 at night.
This one was.
So,
this was at 10:34 at night.
So that would not have been a factor in this particular instance. So we're continuing to monitor it as we've committed to. We are going to be monitoring. We're going to be looking at these instances, and I appreciate you letting us know when your constituents have a question, because that gives us the chance to have the conversation and provide the answer. So let the process happen. And continue to monitor. And if we find that there is a significant change, we're going to look back at it. So.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Swallow, I want to thank you guys for the addition of the light, or the coming addition of the light at Egyptian and Sunset Springs on Pyramid Highway. That's very, very needed control there. Certain times of the day, you have school buses trying to cross 5 lanes, literally, of highway, and people are still traveling at high rates of speed coming south. They're starting to pick up speed going north, even though it's the highway's necking down. So that's going to make that section of highway very much safer. Thank you so much. I've also noticed that, and actually maybe Sparks can answer this, but it will have to be through NDOT's. They're going to have to give the permissions for this. It looks like Dolores is now going through, which is right there where people have to make that U-turn coming out of either the library or that little Centex development that's in the city of Sparks. So that light is another light that's desperately needed. That's a very, very dangerous section of road. I will tell you that I've never seen 35 years on Pyramid Highway that we've lived out there. I can show you a picture that I took yesterday morning. I had an 8:30 meeting, not necessarily early. I left the house at 7:45, and I got stopped at that light, where that light would be at Dolores. That's how much traffic is on the Pyramid Highway. So we're in desperate need of more capacity on the Pyramid Highway. I also agree with Commissioner Lucy with the advanced signal warning systems. What I witnessed this morning on my way into work, I happened to be sort of at the end of the platoon. It depends on where you are in the platoon that's going through the intersection. The car in front of me and I was in the number 1 lane, and the car in the number 2 lane both sped up when they saw the yellow light. So it's exactly the same behavior that you were trying to curtail. People, when they see that yellow light, they're hitting the accelerator and speeding up. So I don't know how to control that. I don't know whether you can, which is part of my argument of saying I think that behavior is going to exist no matter where you have traffic signals, that people, when they see that yellow light, they're going to speed up. But I will also tell you that maybe you guys should go out there and look. It looks like a Bengal tiger going up to those intersections, the skid marks now, to each one of those intersections. I mean, there's a lot of skid marks at each light that you did not. It's not that you didn't see skid marks, but there's just quite a few more. And then the last thing is, please, can we look at a third lane from West Calle de la Plata heading south for that heavy truck traffic? We have it, Ndot rather, Rudy Malfabon did the acceleration lane coming off the Hall Road, which was the Shawnee Hall Road, which was, it's tremendous. But Calle de la Plata, when you go north, the speed limit is 65 miles an hour. And so you have very high rates of speed. That intersection is still a little tight. I would love to see the geometry change to look something a little more like Eagle Canyon, La Posada. But that's, of course, going to take, widening the highway. But if we could just get that third lane that would extend all the way from essentially the Hall Road down through West Calle de la Plata, and which would take us to essentially Egyptian and Sunset Springs. And it's really only about, and I say only, it's still quite a bit. It's about, it's probably about 2,000 feet, maybe a little less, because there is an acceleration lane already coming off of West Calle de la Plata. I will also tell you that Martin Marietta at one point said that they would participate in the materials. They're happy to do that. They did not have to participate in the materials. I guess Ndot didn't need their participation in the beginning, but they have told me in the past that they would participate in trying to make that section of the road safer, because those trucks are fully laden, and so that's a desperate need just in terms of capacity north of Egyptian. So those are all the comments I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Swallow.
Anyone else? Okay. Then we'll move on to Commissioner announcements and updates. Do you have any announcements or updates? Go ahead.
Not an announcement or an update. Ms. Haddock. Thank you so much. I want to tell you something, because I think that this is important. I think it's important to say publicly, because it's someone who was near and dear to many of our hearts, people who knew him, and that's Ron Smith. When I came on RTC, Ron and I knew Tom Tallur for years, and I mean years and years and years. But you were always Ron's favorite. And so...
Don't tell Mom.
Well, I'm talking about in the financial department.
Oh.
In the financial department. He liked Tom. He respected Tom. He thought he was great. But I wanted you to know that this is now your retirement. You held it was a special place for him. He always had great respect for you, and so I think he's happy that you are finally retiring, so that you can pursue other things in life, which is a good thing. So those are all my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lucy?
Thank you, sir. One last thing. Ms. Haddock, the same. It is an end of an era for me. We started together in 2015, while you had been here probably 20 years prior to me. it was many people never met Stephanie. She diligently came to every board meeting, always sat up front, and was always the smiley face. But you didn't really see her at always the projects, and she wasn't always because she was always taking care of our budget and working with her team. And I got to tell you, Stephanie has always been one of my favorite individuals to work with at RTC. She's just always so pleasant and such a wonderful individual. And it truly is an ending of an era for me. I started with many, a director and many executive department leads, and you were the last of those amazing department leads that taught me the ropes here at RTC and educated me about the importance of what we do in transportation and how important this organization is to the community. And I have to thank you for all of your years of continued service and diligence to this. Through those very tough days, there were some of those, and through the great days. You have always been a tremendous employee, a tremendous advocate for the community, and you have done a wonderful duty to your community. So congratulations on your retirement. I hope you enjoy yourself. I'm sure I'll see you around town. But thank you for all your time. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Okay, well then we're on to my favorite subject, adjournment. We're adjourned.